Good afternoon and welcome to News Blitz on ZTN. I'm Blessing Munati. Here's a look at our top stories. Zimbabwean family of 6 now needs almost 100,000 Zimbabwe dollars to survive through the month. 2021 ordinary level results out. Musician stunner up for assaulting wife. And in sport, Sakunda Holdings honors Shire pledge. Thanks so much for joining us. We start with livelihoods. A low-income earning urban family of 6 in Zimbabwe now needs to spend 92,192 Zimbabwe dollars to sustain its monthly basic needs. According to the Consumer Council of Zimbabwe, CCZ, the country's consumer basket for the month of February went up by 17.9% from the end of March figure of 78,191. This has been the highest percentage increase recorded by the Consumer Council so far. And in January, the cost of living figure was 75,757. In February, it went up by 3.2% to 78,191. The end of March figure then shot up by 17.9% to 92,192. The consumer watchdog attributed the cost of living increase to a hike in rentals, healthcare and transport costs. CCZ spokesperson Rose Chikarakara speaks to ZTN.
This has been the highest increase ever since January 2022. All products on the basket, save for meat and vegetables, have increased. The most notable ones being rent, which increased by 50%, transport increasing by 25%, health by 50%, sugar increased by 22.5%, and bread by 18.25%. Most of these increases have followed the parallel market rate. For example, landlords are now demanding payment in US dollars, which is now 300 to $1.
As analyst Kuzanai Sharara says, the exchange rate and the cost of money are some of the biggest challenges that are driving price hikes.
It's a reflection of the cost of money. We are talking about the exchange rate. We have seen what has happened with the exchange rate, and that obviously has got, it affects the price increases. And then also we have to look at what is happening internationally and globally, where we have seen the rise in cost of food, probably because of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and that has resulted in foodstuffs, for example, wheat, soybean, all those are going up, and that obviously is also filtering down to Zimbabwe.
The Consumer Council also highlighted that retailers have gone back to discounting prices in United States dollar terms, which goes against the provisions of Statutory Instrument 185 of 2020. But the retailers shot back. They say the formal exchange rate is not viable. President of the Confederation of Zimbabwe Retailers, Denford Mutashu, speaks to ZTN.
If you check across the informal, the general informal sector, there is a lot of discounting that is taking place. There is also a lot of ditching of the formal exchange rate because it is not viable at the present moment, given the pace at which the parallel market has run.
Our news crew went around the capital, Harare, to get customers' reactions.
Zimbabweans, we are shocked and worried about the ever rising of basic commodities, knowing very well in our house that's how we're supposed to live, eating all those things and stuff.
Zuva rega rega zvinhu zviri kukwira ende zviri kukwira kwayo zviri kukwira zvacho maproducts emuno muZimbabwe.
Ngatichengetedzei zvinhu zvekwedu kuti zvitiitire zvakanaka nokuti hapana patinombofa takatiza nyika yedu nokuti upfu hwadhura.
Well, moving on to education, the 2021 November ordinary level results are finally out. Announcing the results, Zimbabwe School Examinations Council Board Chairperson Professor Eddie Mwenje revealed that the 2021 pass rate rose by 1.57% compared to 2020, and a total of 249,914 candidates set for the November 2021 exams compared to 267,099 in 2020.
The Zimbabwe School Examination Council Board and Management would like to advise the nation of the release of the 2021 November Ordinary Level Examination results, which were written between the 1st of December 2021 and the 31st of January 2022. Heads of examination centers will be able to collect the results of their respective schools, centers from our regional offices on Wednesday, the 13th of April 2022.
Our correspondent Samantha Rusare was at the ZIMSEC headquarters and gives us more.
Thank you very much. I am at the ZIMSEC offices in Harare, where the board chairman of ZIMSEC has announced that the 2021 O-level results are now out. He did mention that they will be readily available on the ZIMSEC online platforms today at 1600 hours Central African time, of course. And he did specify and emphasize that candidates should also go in time because they will be available in for 5 days. So he did mention that they should be going there in time. And in terms of statistics for this year, we see that there is a 1.57% increase in pass rates as compared to 2020. This year, our pass rate is 26.34% as compared to last year, which was 24%. 0.77%. He did say and attribute this to the COVID-19 pandemic, where he said that in 2020 we saw a lot of lockdowns, unlike in 2021, but he was hoping as well that in 2022, because of the easing of the restrictions, we will be having maybe better pass rates, because 2019 had a much better pass rate. And also in terms of the genders, we see that females in 2021, their pass rate is 25.40%, and the males are leading this year with 27.19%. So that's it. That's all I have for you for now at the ZIMSEC offices. It's back to the studio for now.
From performance in education, we look at performance in the technology sector. The fourth quarter of the 2021 was a difficult one for the postal and telecommunications sector. Postal and Telecommunications Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe Director General Dr. Gift Machengete attributed this to the deteriorating exchange rate and liquidity constraints during the quarter. Our correspondents Owen Kaura and Kudachideme are at the Porters headquarters in Harare, where Dr. Machengete presented the 2021 fourth quarter sectoral report. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Well, thanks very much, Blessing. Yes, indeed, Dr. Gift Machengete, Director General of Porters, has just finished his presentation. And we've got some key points to note, and I'm joined by our business correspondent, Kudachideme, just to put into context some of the issues that came out of that report. And of course, we'll start with the yearly report, looking at the yearly revenue of the mobile network operators. Kuda, maybe you can just break down what exactly is going on in the sector in terms of the yearly performance of the mobile network operators.
Bob, it was actually an interesting year for the operators, because what we saw is that the traffic for internet and data almost doubled during the year. That was mainly because of the COVID pandemic. We saw people working from home and resorting to the Internet of Things. So what that did for the sector is we saw revenues are going up by almost 46% to about 76.4 billion. That's just for the mobile network operators. But if you look at the internet access providers, their revenues were also up by about 50%. So it was quite a successful year for them.
All right, but the Director General also looked at the quarterly performance, fourth quarter 2021, and there's been a decline in some sectors, in some areas. Now, maybe you can just walk us through what is causing those declines, and then maybe looking at the future. What's the future for the sector?
Okay, so on a quarterly basis, we see that the numbers were actually down, because traditionally when you're going into the fourth quarter, the final season, the final quarter of the year, that's when you're expecting your postal numbers to be up, because that's the season when people are sending out parcels for Christmas. That's the season when people are making a lot of calls, so the numbers are traditionally supposed to be up. But what we saw was that national voice was down 13.8%. Mobile internet data was also down 3.5%. That's compared to the previous quarter. And you're also looking at postal and courier services, it was down 11.7%. So maybe it was quite a difficult quarter, but if you put it completely together with the rest of the year, it was a good year.
Now, another interesting dynamic in terms of rural access to internet, VSAT, it looks like there's been an increase as well in that sector. Now, maybe just take us through that as well.
But what we saw during the whole of last year was that there was a massive push for access to internet in the rural areas because of mostly of the COVID pandemic. So there was a major investment going into VSAT services, particularly that was coming from the fixed line service providers.
All right, now let's just look at the three mobile network operators. Of course, we've got Telecel, we've got Econet, and we've got Net1. Telecel are taking a bit of a beating there. Maybe let's start with Telecel. Yes,
but Telecel has really had a difficult, I can say that for the past 3-4 years, they're having capitalization issues. They're not really sitting on a solid balance sheet. So what we saw is that they lost most of their market share. From the numbers that we got from the DG, we saw that Telecel was down from 4.2% to 3.7% of the entire market. Then Net1 actually did well during the year. Net1 picked up from 30.7% to 31.4%. So what that means is that Econet, which is usually the leader, dropped a bit of market share there from 65% to 64%.
And what can we attribute that to?
Well, I think during the year, Net1 has really been on a massive drive for marketing. They've really been getting into the market and trying to capture that market. Yep. So.
And then maybe let's just take a look at one issue that I know is keeping most Zimbabweans awake at night, the price of data. Now, Dr. Gift Machengete made it very clear that the price of data is relatively cheap in the region. Now, let's just hear what he had to say. Let him explain himself.
We are lower than a few of our colleagues in the SADC region. The only problem for us is that when you look at South Africa, the value of the rand is quite stronger than ours. So at the end of the day, it appears as though our tariffs are higher, but no, it's disposable income. Their disposable income is higher than ours.
Many thanks for that update, Owen and Kuda. Another update, this time in health. Government has assured its citizens that they have nothing to fear from the COVID-19 variant, which was recently discovered in neighboring Botswana. A chief coordinator of the COVID-19 task force in Zimbabwe, Dr. Agnes Mahomva, says Zimbabwe is ready for any variant. She says the country has maintained all requisite preventive measures, both at all ports of entry as well as inside the country.
At this point in time in our response, as we have said many times, we've learned lessons from the waves that we have experienced. Each of those waves was characterized by a specific variant. The measures that we have put in place that we are implementing cover any kind of variant that might come our way. So the measures that we are implementing, have been implementing, are the ones we continue implementing. The one that you are mentioning from Botswana, they did specifically say it's a variant of an Omicron. So we do not have anything to fear. We do have everything to push us to continue to be vigilant and implement the measures that we're already implementing.
Now, what happens when the one tasked with catching criminals is himself accused of having his hands deep in the jar? And as the old adage goes, who will police the police? Well, when it comes to the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, ZAC, it maintains its hands are clean after the Auditor General's office claimed it had not been furnished with requisite documentation for payments of goods and services that it received. ZAC spokesperson John Makamuri acknowledged that between 2012 and 2019, the Commission's books were not in order owing to legacy issues that are now an issue of the past.
The Commission is currently studying the report and we issue a comprehensive statement in due course. But ZAC acknowledges that its books for the period 2012 to 2019 were not in order owing to legacy issues.
In our Crime Watch, 3 daring suspects were nabbed over the weekend for smuggling and attempting to defeat the course of justice. The trio, Christian Masunga, Ed Moore and Maxwell Mutambisi, were stopped at a security checkpoint in Vuma, a district 194 kilometers south of Zimbabwe's capital, Harare, and offered 2,000 rands for easy passage. The police officers turned down the offer and immediately arrested Ed Moore Mutambisi, who had tried to hand the money over. Mutambisi's accomplices then beat up the police officers while trying to uncuff their colleague. Midlands Provincial Police spokesperson Inspector Emmanuel Mahoko confirmed the incident.
The truck was towing 2 trailers heading to Harare, while the driver of the truck, Christian Masunga, a man aged 40 of Tsowani in Chiredzi, was being interviewed. One, Edmore Mutambis, aged 37 of Warren Park in Harare, came driving a Toyota Hilux and offered South African 2,000 rands to a police officer for free passage of the truck. The police officer immediately arrested Edmore Mutambis for bribery. Upon seeing their counterpart being arrested, Maxwell Mutambis, who was in Edmore's vehicle, came and started pushing away. Police officers were handcuffing Edmore. The truck driver also joined in the scuffle, but they were all subdued and arrested for attempting to defeat the cause of justice.
A man from Donga, a district in Zimbabwe's Midlands province, committed suicide after assaulting his living girlfriend over suspected infidelity. It is alleged that on Thursday last week, the now deceased had an altercation with his girlfriend near Donga Business Centre, where he used fists and open hands to assault her until she became unconscious. He left home for an unknown destination, only for a passerby to find him hanging from a tree. Midlands Provincial Police spokesperson Inspector Emmanuel Mahoko confirmed the incident to ZTN.
The altercation degenerated into a physical attack where Chauna Mahoma is alleged to have become violent and assaulted his girlfriend using fists and open hands until she became unconscious. He left home for an unknown destination. On 4 April 2022 at about 07:30 hours, his body was discovered hanging from a tree near Donga Business Centre by a passerby. Donga police attended the scene and investigations are in progress. It is believed that he might have decided to take his life thinking that he had killed his girlfriend.
Nothing stunning about the following report. Hip-hop musician Desmond Chideme, popularly known as Stunner, appeared in court today facing charges of alleged physical abuse. He is accused of physically assaulting his wife, Dion Tafirenyika, and Stunner allegedly had a misunderstanding with his wife after she refused to surrender her mobile phone to him. It is alleged that he slapped her before forcibly removing her artificial nails. Stunner pledged not guilty to the charge and is expected back in court on the 11th of May for trial. Now, at least 45 people have died and scores more are missing as heavy rains continue to lash KwaZulu-Natal province. A cooperative governance and traditional affairs spokesperson Nonala Ndlovu said so far 20 lives have been lost. Spokesperson Mzwanele Manyi says the former president has been admitted to hospital and is presently undergoing tests. This was revealed when he failed to turn up for the resumption of a corruption trial. Zuma has pleaded not guilty to charges of corruption and money laundering. A United Kingdom judge has issued a warning about sexist language in the workplace after a female executive successfully sued a £3 billion company when a boss called her a good girl. The employee complained when a boss continuously used the term despite her asking him not to. The tribunal ruled in her favor and nothing how language evolves over time, and once harmless phrases are now seen as racial, homophobic and sexist. Crew members aboard China's historic Shenzhou 13 spaceflight mission are gearing up for the final stage of a series of preparations ahead of their return to Earth in mid-April. After spending more than 170 days working in orbit, the 3 Chinese astronauts have been packing their personal belongings and samples while organizing the data and records obtained during their nearly 6-month business trip. All sports news is coming up next. We start with football. Defending Casalaga Premier Soccer League champions FC Platinum are 4 points adrift of log leaders Dynamos, and that's no reason to panic, says coach Norman Mapeza. After 11 rounds of action, FC Platinum have recorded 5 wins, 4 draws and 2 losses. Mapeza is, however, unfazed.
The pressure, we're going to put ourselves under pressure because of the league. You know, we are the defending champions, of course, but with our situation at the moment, I don't think we need to put ourselves under pressure and say, like, look, let's push for the league, let's push for this, let's push for this. We are pushing for everything. You never know with football, but we are here to compete and we'll just see how the season progresses.
Mapeza is also backing his youthful side to deliver, saying it's early days to judge.
No, we have been creating opportunities. We still have we've got a young squad. If you look at the guys who are playing up front, they're still young. So I believe for them to get that much needed experience, they need to keep playing football. As much as we're going to mourn and cry about them missing clear-cut chances, but that's the only way they're going to learn.
Former Dynamo striker George Shaya's widow, Agnes, this afternoon received a house in Madokero from the team's sponsor, Secunda Holdings. Agnes said she was humbled by the recognition.
Ndinotenda hangu kuti mamurangarira when he is late, but Mwari havatongerwe. Chishuwo changu kuti dai zvakanga zvaitikawo achiripo when he was still alive.
Secunda Holdings director Kudata Gwire says they are committed to helping more former footballers.
Vadosha vakaita kuti tizive kuti kune bhora munonzi pane vamwe vakauya before him, pane vamwe vakauya after him, but kuti kunzi kune bhora muZimbabwe uyo aJoji and second kuti kunzi kune Dynamos ndovaJoji Shaya. Saka isusu seSecunda takafunga kuti chero taakuita zvekudetsera mubhora, takafunga kuti zvakakodzera kuti titange tamuta uonewo vakamboya before kuti tivaremekedze tivaendese pamberi.
Well, good news for Zimbabwe on the tourism front. Spanish tennis star Gabin Muguruza was in Victoria Falls this past weekend as she continues her recovery from a shoulder injury. The 2-time Grand Slam winner shared some pictures on his social media with a caption, "This week I picked up and backpack a few moves and without thinking twice, our first stop was Zimbabwe." Certainly encouraging to see her grabbing one of the local beers on social media. News Blitz comes to a close for today. It has been an absolute pleasure. Remember, you can get in touch with more of our programming on our website at ztn.co.zw or on our social media platforms. It's at ZTN News on Twitter. Don't go away. World in 5 is coming up next.